Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com. Hello, everyone. Joe Samaniego here, along with Ben Schneider, Adam Lemrys, Cody Lamberts from the Podium Finish, and Joshua Birch. A little bit of lights out over there in the United Kingdom for him, but he'll be on shortly. And a big thank you to our Patreon subscribers, calling the show, Mark and Robin, for keeping us on the air. You too can invest in the Grid Network by clicking the link to the Patreon page or buy me a coffee deal. One-time contribution, as what Edward, Amber, and Zach did. We truly appreciate coffee, drinks for the team here at the Grid Network. And Ben, I know Joshua's going to be joining us a bit shortly, but we got to talk about today's Formula One race over in Singapore. The championship is still alive.
Yeah, I got to say, I think it's the same issue Josh had on the Encore show on Monday. Yeah. There he is. Looks like we're back here. Yeah.
No idea. It just keeps happening. It's all. I'm going to put you up. Hello. I can zoom you up and down now. But yeah, that's just exactly the same issue I faced a couple of days ago. How bizarre. Hello.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully we keep connection with Josh here. But let's get into the F1 discussion. The World Championship fight will continue on to Japan next week after Max Verstappen only finished 7th in an eventful Singapore Grand Prix. Sergio Perez, his Red Bull teammate, won the race on track in dominating fashion in what many called one of the greatest drives of his career, right up there with Secure 2020. But he did have to wait a few hours for the stewards to decide on a penalty for a safety car infringement after the race. They eventually gave Perez a 5-second time penalty, allowing him to keep the win as Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari finished just over 7 seconds behind. So, Josh, if we have you back here, we'll just make sure we do.
Hello.
I want to go to you first on this one. We've talked about this before on this show. Should the FIA have to make these decisions before declaring a winner and having the podium ceremony?
I think they do. It's getting a bit ridiculous now. We went through this in Abu Dhabi last year as well when we waited, 2.5 hours we all did on the Grid Network stream as well, where we only covered F1 that weekend and we had to fill while we waited for the announcement as well. It is a bit silly we've had to wait this long. He's been given that 5-second time penalty, had a 7.5-second advantage, so he does keep the race win. There was a rumour he could have another set of penalties coming up as well. That could have changed it as well, but that has gone away. It's just one penalty for the safety car infringement. He keeps the race win, but these decisions should be made during the race. They shouldn't need to hear from the drivers to get their point of view, because the drivers are going to be biased in what they say. So if I went up to someone in the middle of the street and punched them in the face, the police wouldn't wait to arrest me until I gave them my verdict. They'll arrest me and then question me. It's silly. Give him the penalty, and then if it's wrong, take it away from him later on. I know it's innocent to prove me guilty, but in this situation, it was a slam dunk because we saw he was towing the safety car up. So I think the FIA is still in the process of finding its feet post-Mazzy Gate and everything that happened in Abu Dhabi and everything that happened even way before last year as well with all the decisions. But this needs to be fixed quickly because we knew half an hour before the end of the race that he was under investigation, and to wait an extra 2 hours afterwards to get the result, it isn't on. It needs to be settled before the podium ceremony.
I agree with you. Before the podium ceremony, because for all the fans that leave, seeing the race, all the victory celebration, and then if 2 hours later a reversal, I just feel like that doesn't send the right message to the sport. And the one thing you bring up Abu Dhabi, I was hopeful after what happened in Abu Dhabi, they'll take the time to go through the rule book and see, okay, where can we clarify and make changes, not just in the safety car procedure, but all over? Because here's the thing. We saw the replays. Yes, he was, but more than 10 car lengths. Not once, but twice, potentially a third time even. At that point, they should have it where it just says like first time a warning, second time last warning, third time 5-second penalty. No ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, that's something where if NASCAR, we have the minimum pace. If you fail to keep up minimum pace, you get overtaken. Something F1 could look into. Having something more clear cut so that way, okay, you've been given 3 warnings, you get a 5-second penalty, easy as that. We know that during the race, Sergio Perez could go out there, but just this waiting and waiting, especially we always talk about the casual fan that Formula One, NASCAR is looking to get. If they're not on Twitter and they just find out the next morning on the headlines, oh, Sergio Perez did not win, does that really send the right way of how the sport is governed, how it's officiated? Will we care about any sport that did that, where 2 days later, hours later, you find out the winner you saw didn't win? It doesn't look good. F1, they should really start looking at making these calls during the race, before the podium finish, because the last thing we want is fans to be confused and trying to follow a sport that the winner you see on the podium may not win.
And just before we continue on, this isn't something that's new to Formula One. This has been going on since the 90s, even early 80s as well. Jim Rosenthal, who used to present ITV F1 back in the day between 97 and 05, he once said it's the only sport he's ever known where fans can leave the circuit, wake up the next morning, pick up the morning paper, and the results changed. And it's exactly the same situation here. The most famous result change, of course, was back in 1999 when Ferrari were thrown out for illegal barge boards at Malaysia 1 week, and then the following week in Japan, they were reinstated again. And Häkkinen was world champion twice in 1999, world champion after Malaysia before I got kicked out, world champion after Japan when he won the race. So this is something that needs to be fixed, and it's a deep-root issue in Formula One, and it's been around for over 30 years now. So I really hope that in the 21st century, in 2022, with all the technology we've got now, it shouldn't be the situation where we're waiting hours after the race. The FIA are still dinosaur technology. We need to trust the fact that we don't need to get the driver's opinions anymore. We can see every single car. We can see every single track camera. We are in 4K Ultra HD technologies. We have driver cameras inside their helmets now. We no longer need we've got their radios, for God's sake. We do not need driver input anymore. And hopefully you can all still hear me.
Guys, I want you to help me out here, because I vaguely remember my F1 history beyond the mid-2000s gets a little bit shaky here. But wasn't there a race where like Kimi Räikkönen or somebody was declared the winner, and the next week there was a picture of him handing the trophy off to, I feel like it was a Jordan or something like that. Is that
Kalle?
Kalle, that's right. That's an example of, having to wait that long to receive. At least with NASCAR, with this new disqualification policy, you only have to wait, an hour and a half to 2 hours after the race. Some tech happens at the track, and it's very rare. We just saw it for the very first time in the Cup Series several weeks back in Pocono with the Gibbs cars. So, I go back to the example that always comes into my mind is in 2019, we were all, not happy with the TV direction, because it seemed like Carlos Sainz was always overperforming in his McLaren and was never getting any TV coverage. And his very first podium in Brazil 2019, when Lewis got a penalty after the race for, I believe it was tagging Alex Albon, Carlos Sainz got promoted to third. And we all said only Carlos Sainz could get a podium without it being shown on TV. Like, of course, that would happen to him. But that was an example of a great moment in his career and getting to experience that. And he didn't even really get the real feeling of it, because it took the stewards however long it took them, a couple of hours again, I think, to make that decision. If it's something as simple as we're pretty sure this is going to be a 5-second penalty, there's a precedent to give drivers a 5-second or a 10-second penalty for this. I don't want to see this, this so-and-so will be investigated after the race for this supposed infringement that we believe. it has to be decided now. You have to make that call right away, or at the very least right after the race if it happens on the last lap or something like that, and make that decision and then stick with it. I don't like seeing these decisions being drawn out and, summoning the drivers to the steward's room and then, all this back and forth. And then we find out that the rules either change or they don't. It just, I don't know. I with you guys, I think it might turn some fans off from the sport because they might go to a race, they see the results, with their own eyes on the track, and then they wake up the next morning and you read the paper and the results have changed, or you log on to Twitter and the results have changed. I'm not a fan of that. And I think Formula One, the FIA really needs to consider doing something about it so that the precedent changes going forward. But like you said, Josh, it's been a problem since the 90s. I don't know that we can expect it to change anytime in the immediate future. So we might just have to wait on that one a little bit longer. Now, speaking of waiting, the race was delayed for an hour after some heavy rain passed through. Everyone started on the intermediate tires, but didn't pit until much later in the race as the track took a long time to dry out. Of course, it's a night race and it's very humid out in Singapore, so that meant that the track did not dry as quickly as it might in other races during the year. This left very little room for strategy on a track where it's already difficult to pass, and like other events, the intermediates did not wear out that quickly. So, Joe, I'll start with you on this one. Should the FIA look at starting procedure changes for conditions like today, or potentially as well a softer intermediate compound that wears out a bit quicker?
I say a little bit of both, because what we saw today, that intermediate tire, it did not wear out. It gave me a lot of reminders of Turkey, where you saw the tire just last. I believe Esteban Ocon did the entire race without making a pit stop that day to change tires. So overall, I think we could really see some sort of change where the tire has some degradation to it, so that way you do see drivers trying to take care of the tires, manage the tires. When it comes to the start procedures, from what I understand, the FIA, they don't want to start under really wet conditions, because then you might have somebody go out intermediate and either A, it works out really good and then that changes the race strategy-wise, or B, this is what they don't want, a big crash on the first lap and then people saying we should have waited till better conditions, the safety. So I think there should be something where the FIA could say, hey, look, we're starting under wet conditions. We feel it's safe enough to drive, but everyone has to start on the full wets. Nobody could just go on the grid and hope it's good enough for intermediates and see if they are successful or unsuccessful. After the first lap, let the teams decide if they want to switch to intermediates, stay on full wets, let the strategy develop. Today, we really didn't see a whole lot of strategy because everyone was on the same tire for most of the race. The only real strategy was George Russell, and took him a long time. But once he got going, everyone stopped. If it wasn't for the safety car and virtual cars, I think we'd be talking about almost a procession of a race today.
Yeah, me and Megan were literally commentating on the race as well, with Josh as well. And we got to lap 5, and me and Megan sort of looked at each other and said, this is like it's lap 21. The entire race was sort of just dead. There was 3 to 5 second gaps between each car as well. It was awful as well. Singapore really was a race of two halves, wasn't it? As well, and it reminds me actually a bit of Germany 2019 in terms of everything just sort of exploded at once. But I think the FIA start procedure needs looking at, because it was too long. It's a new procedure after Monaco, because in Monaco we rushed the start time and the teams complained because they didn't know that they were starting on intermediates on dry tyres. The wet setup wasn't there. The dry setup was on the car instead. So it was the correct decision to delay the entire start procedure. That meant we got the 2-hour race inside the 3-hour window, because the 3-hour window was supposed to start at the original scheduled start time at 2 o'clock UK time, or 1 o'clock UK time. It started at 2 instead. So it all shifted an hour, which is great after Spa last year. So that's a good procedure. But one thing I didn't like is the fact that the entire procedure moved. So it was a 40-minute wait from the pit lane opening to lights out. And that needs changing in this situation. We saw in MotoGP today with its delay, we went to a quick start procedure where the pit lane was open for 10 minutes and then they were only allowed on the grid for 5 minutes. And then we got going. So that cut down a 30-minute procedure to 15 minutes. And Formula One needs something like that so that we get bang out there on the track and get racing, so we don't get more rain. Because imagine the track's dried out, We wait the entire 40-minute procedure, and then all of a sudden the rain starts falling down again. So that needs changing. In terms of the intermediates, yeah, I can see why they waited until the intermediate conditions were the best, because Formula One likes standing starts. They don't want to stand it behind the safety car, and that safety car will sort of gone now anyway for rolling starts. And the last time we tried a standing start in horrific conditions was Spa 98, and everyone sort of committed Harry Carey at turn one. So that's why the FIA sort of learns from their mistakes and put the safety car out quite often for that. I do admit that if we do have the wet weather tyre, so if it rains during the race, we should let them use the extreme tyres unless it gets bad, then we stop it. I don't like the fact that we've barely used the full wets at all anymore. We're not NASCAR on ovals or Indy cars on ovals. We can go racing on these tracks. These tyres are designed to get rid of 60 litres of water per second. So they're very much capable. And I've said in the commentary as well, to try and slice between them, maybe a new tyre that we saw for 1 year in World Endurance Championship and 2 seasons in MotoGP, the slick intermediate, which is an asymmetric tyre, which on one side it's slick tyres, and on the inside it is intermediate. So on the outside tyre as well, it is slicks, and on the inside it is the intermediate grooves. So that basically means that it's shredding water on the inside and giving you a grip on the outside. So I think slick intermediates in these conditions would have been a lot more better and a lot more entertaining to watch. And you don't need many sets as well. So I think Pirelli could easily give just 1 set per driver per weekend of slick intermediates, because it's such a finite thing. So that's what, 1 set of tyres, that's 20 extra set of tyres to take to a race weekend, and keep them only for racing conditions as well. That's perfect. Slick intermediates for race only, which means we get competitive racing. I think that's the solution.
And our own Casey Campbell from Grid Live Encore asks, how do you think Ferrari did today? I think the race was pretty much decided at the start when Sergio Perez got a better launch. But, like we were talking about, it was a bit of a procession up front today. That's not to say that Sergio didn't put in a great drive, because there was a lot of pressure on him with the changing conditions and everything. But I think he pretty much had the race in control for much of it. Josh, you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, for once, Ferrari did a perfect strategy. They did everything really well. And one thing I found interesting as well was something that Ted Kravitz said as well, and I did follow up on it as well. Leclerc said over the radio, and I went back and listened to it. He said it wasn't the car that was struggling today, it was himself. He was suffering with fatigue and pace loss as well. So Leclerc got exhausted during the race today, and that's why he was making a couple of mistakes, and that's why he dropped off 7.5 seconds at the end of the race to Perez. He lost it completely in terms of pace. So it was Leclerc's own limitations that cost him today. But Ferrari, perfect strategy with a 2-3. I think it was 2-3, wasn't it? Somebody remind me. Yeah, Perez with Leclerc and Sainz. So great result for them, and great result for McLaren out there today as well. They got lucky with the safety car and timed it to perfection for a 4.5 or 4.6. A decent result for them today as well. Crucial because Alpine retired from the race as well with double engine failure. So, and AlphaTauri not scoring points either. So McLaren moved comfortably now ahead into 4th place in the Constructors' Championship.
I believe McLaren were 4-5, and Aston Martin as well were 6-8 or something like that, right? I mean, it was a very good day for them as well. And
only the second double points finish for Aston Martin this year as well. Yeah. Great result for them.
Yeah, and great to see. If you had told us a few years ago Sebastian Vettel would be fighting Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen for 7th place, it would have probably sounded crazy to all of us, but that's what happened today. Things are a little bit different now in Formula One, and of course Verstappen was facing an uphill battle pretty much all day here. Now, let's get back to Verstappen. Of course, next race weekend is Suzuka, the Japanese Grand Prix. Verstappen can clinch the championship. All he needs to do is outscore both Perez and Leclerc, or have none of them finish in the points. And of course, if they're tied, Verstappen holds the tiebreaker with his 11 wins on the season. So, Josh, yes or no? Will Verstappen wrap it up in Japan?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Simple enough. Joe, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's a simple yes. Just score points ahead of them. He has the car. He has the team. I don't see why he can't do it at Suzuka.
if he doesn't do it in Suzuka, I face a Sophie's Choice, choosing between the United States Grand Prix World Championship decider or Doctor Who's Centenary Special. So it's a Sophie's Choice I don't want to make. So yes, he will do it in Japan, or I will be very, 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 very upset.
I've got a feeling you both are correct, and I think Verstappen will wrap it up in Japan as well. Of course, if he doesn't, if he has a freak DNF or something like that, of course, we know it's only a matter of time with the advantage that he has over his teammate and over Charles Leclerc as well. And with that, I believe now we're going to move on to MotoGP and bring Kobe back in for that.
Thank you, Ben. And not long ago, Fabio Quartararo had a whopping 90-point lead in the championship. Many called it for him or Alicia Spargo with no chance for Pecco Bagnaia. Now Pecco is only 2 points behind Quartararo in the championship, and 7 riders still have a mathematical chance at taking home the title. Miguel Oliveira got around Jack Miller to take another win for the Red Bull KTM factory team. Pecco Bagnaia ended up finishing 3rd, Nea Bastianini 6th, Alicia Spargo on 11th, and Fabio Quartararo came in 17th, scoring no points. The top 3 can leave the next round with the points lead or tied for the lead. 4th and 5th will need to win in the next 3 rounds. 6 and 7 are in a must-win situation, and they'll need the front runners to have some bad luck. Starting with you, Josh, why did Quartararo fail to score points in this Grand Prix, and is the pattern of a second half letdown occurring again like in 2020?
I think it really is as well. The second half of the season has been a complete letdown for Quartararo. He hasn't won now since the summer break, even just before that. So Quartararo's struggling. He's never gone that well in the wet as well. I know, Kobe, you were watching the race as well with the same coverage I was. And you might have heard as well the fact that he got forced out by Alex Marquez just on that one, and he went onto the green and nearly dropped the bike. So he dropped back to 18th place. And after that, it was such a struggle throughout the entire race to try and get up the field, and he only managed to claw back 17th position as well. So Quartararo had the day from hell, but it was the day we needed because after Bagnaia's fall in Japan, the championship lead was back up to 18 points. Now it's only 2 points, as you said, Kirby. So it's a yes from me that after 2 hours of waiting after the rain delay for MotoGP as well as F1, we got that amazing situation in the championship that now there's only 2 points between them again. And it's a weird situation as well. But Quartararo's never liked the rain. He got forced out at the start. He got mugged as well. And it was a combination of 6 and 1, half a dozen the other for him.
Yeah, Quartararo, not the greatest start. Didn't get pushed right. The rain conditions, I just knew that was not going to be good news for him. He got as high as, I believe, 17th, 16th, maybe even 15th place, but then he just started falling back again, have a poor finish. And as you mentioned, the momentum has really shifted. Yesterday, I was thinking about, who has the more pressure. I feel now is shifting to Fabio because after what happened this weekend, now everyone's starting to doubt him, the Yamaha. We even saw Franco Morbidelli ahead of Fabio Quartararo. That's really surprising considering how we've been talking about how he's throwing Franco Morbidelli scored points today. So Fabio, I think, really is leaving dejected. The one thing he could at least hold his head on, he didn't have a good start. That's not an excuse, but he got pushed wide. That compromised his race. The wet conditions, that didn't make it easy for him. Just regroup yourself, get to the next race with a clear head and say that you're going to go out there, try to get the championship because at the end, it is too close for anybody to start doubting themselves. They have to go all out for the next few races.
And I'll tell you this, I've worked it out. It can't be won in Australia. It can't be won in Malaysia. This title fight has to go down to the last race of the season now. So who would have thought it? As you said earlier, Kirby, 90 points at one point was the gap. 2 points now, and it's going down to the finale. This is why I love MotoGP. Anything can happen. It's more unpredictable than Formula One.
Yeah, and we also don't have a playoff format in MotoGP, which makes it even more special. And considering the fact that Max Verstappen has one hand on the F1 World Championship, MotoGP might as well go down to the very wire to give us an epic championship battle that's similar to what we saw in Formula One. Last year, I see Demos there saying, "Hey, yo, what's up, guys? Hope you're having a great day." Demos enjoyed all the racing this weekend. And you said the next race, MotoGP, Australian Grand Prix, or Malaysian Grand Prix? Josh?
Australia.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah, looking forward to the race in Australia. And as a casual viewer of MotoGP myself, it's been very surprising to see an epic collapse of Fabio Quartararo in the second half of the season. Because I remember early in the MotoGP season when Fabio had that big lead, we were talking about at some point it's going to be one hand on the championship and Fabio is going to become champ again. But now Fabio is certainly going to be in a lot of trouble because Pecco Bagnaia, he got on that hot streak, started winning all those races, having excellent points finishes. But Fabio, he just hasn't been able to match the form we saw earlier in the season. It's going to be interesting to see if he'll be able to rediscover that form, or if he's going to need a life vest, or he's just going to keep on sinking while Pecco keeps swimming. And yesterday, you said Pecco needs to run a smart race, don't cave under pressure, and avoid worrying about Quartararo. Third place finish, no threat to win in Thailand, but overall, it was a good points day for Pecco Bagnaia. Does today feel more like a win for Pecco and release some of that pressure that appears to be shifting over to Fabio, as you guys said?
Yeah, he has to go, leaving Thailand feeling really good about himself. He is putting together a great comeback, considering even on this show, we were saying 90 points. It looks like it's over. Fabio's running great, not showing any signs of weaknesses. How the tables have turned, and now we're all talking about Pecco being the dominant first. Yes, we know the Coyotes are really good, but still, he has to put himself in that situation to go out there to get the win. And as you were saying, Kobe, this championship is getting really exciting. Just the thought that we now have 7 riders mathematically eligible to get this championship, where when he got 90 points, a 90-point lead, we thought, well, it's only 2. It's just amazing how the season has gone in. Joshua says coming down to the last race. I'm so excited, and I think Pecco has to be now the favorite to win the MotoGP World Championship.
I think he's definitely my pick as well. And don't count out Aleix Espargaro either. He's still been amazingly competitive in the last couple of races to keep that point gap. So Quartararo's really got to pull something out of the bag in Phillip Island, which is a fast circuit, dangerous circuit at Phillip Island, and I cannot wait to see it. It's windy there. It's literally a coast circuit. The track is here, and then over some rocks at turn 1, ocean. Complete ocean. So I can't wait to see it as well. My sister's actually been to Phillip Island. She was at Melbourne and then she went to the Phillip Island track and she's walked around it as well. And the one thing she said to me about it as well, after I'd finished strangling her because I was really jealous about her, I'm joking. She said as well that the wind there is unbelievable. And even in a beautiful sunny day with tropical conditions, the wind is ice cold and very fast. So it's going to be really struggling for the Aprilias and the Yamahas, but it's perfect for the Ducatis, who get such a great straight line speed out the corners as well. So it's going to be fantastic. And that's not Megan, by the way. It's the other one. It's Kellyanne, the elder sister, who went to Phillip Island a couple of years ago. And bought me some nice gravel, actually, as well. The gravel's just on my windowsill over there from every circuit I've been to. But yeah, so it's going to be a lot of fun going over there. I've completely lost the question about what we were going to ask as well. But did today feel like a win for Pecco Bagnaia? Yes, it did. Because as I'm sure you saw, Kobe, as well, he stopped racing. He stopped racing Bezzecchi and he stopped racing Miller. And he stopped racing Oliveira as well. So this today was a big, big win for him in the title. It was more about the points on the board rather than race victory.
Yeah, definitely a big win for Pecco Bagnaia. We're definitely looking forward to the next race at Phillip Island. Seen Phillip Island when Repco Supercars Championship race. I really like that track. Haven't seen MotoGP there, but really looking forward to the next round. And Josh, we know it's late over there in the UK, and you're very tired from all the commentary you've done throughout the racing weekend. So, what's your great one shining moment so we can send you off to bed for the night?
Megan worked out. It's 17 hours I've done today. So thanks, Max. God knows what it is over the past couple of weeks. One shining moment, it's really hard because there's been so much on. Surprisingly, it's one of the really easier weekends. I don't want to go Perez because that's obvious. He's been getting quite good out there as well. My one shining moment, let's go NASCAR for once. Let's make it a bit different for me. I was commentating. Well, I wasn't commentating. I was the pit reporter for USRN today, and Adam was there as well. Was with us there, and you're going to hear from him again in a second. I thought that was a great NASCAR race, beautifully done, beautiful winner. All got through it smoothly, no big problems, and it was just a nice, quick, fun race for once. And I think it gave everybody a good feeling of that. Oh yeah, that's why we like NASCAR. No big wrecks, no big drama, a cool, calculated race that was all about the strategy and all about the pace of the drivers. I think that did the soul some good for NASCAR in the troubled couple of weeks we've had.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Josh. We've been talking about safety in NASCAR, especially with this next gen car. How the drivers have been a lot more vocal about the issues and how they feel it's unsafe. Kyle Larson even said that he believes that his sprint car is safer than a NASCAR Cup Series car, and that's really insane to even think about. But like you're saying, today we're reminded why we all like NASCAR. Some really good super speedway racing. Didn't see the big one or multiple big ones. Everybody was able to complete the day and go home, and that's all we can really ask for. And really appreciate you, Josh. We're gonna let you go now. And before we get into the NASCAR part, which is a great transition, we have some. I believe we have a comment in the chat room right here from Michael Tillerson to answer the question in the chat. If Max will win in Japan and take home the title, is that is a speed track, figure eight, anything can happen like today in Singapore. Appreciate you for sharing that, Michael. And Joe, take it away with NASCAR.
NASCAR Cup Series at Talladega, Alabama. Of course, Talladega, the biggest racetrack that NASCAR visit each and every year. And even this year, because of Hurricane Ian, there were some folks in the campgrounds as well as other NASCAR facilities. Michael Tiller said, by the way, I hope all is well with Hurricane Ian. I'm safe, and I hope everyone else is. We're definitely thinking about everyone impacted by that situation. And today at Talladega Super Speedway, what a race. It was intense. It was on the edge of your seat, but no major accidents, thankfully, especially with all the concerns about the safety of this car. And over 100,000 in attendance from 50 states, 27 countries, 4 continents. What a crowd at the track. And they all saw NASCAR most popular driver, Chase Elliott, become the first playoff driver to win in the playoffs and earn a spot in the round of 8 in the playoffs. Ben, Kobe, no big one, but intense side-by-side racing. No controversy at the end. No overtime. Was this a good race, as Jeff Gluck would say?
Yeah, it was about as good as you could get. I guess, did we end on 188 laps exactly? Because I know we did have a 2-lap shootout there, so it was like an overtime shootout. I guess it didn't fully go into overtime maybe. But, I think, Joe, we were talking about on the pre-race show yesterday, we were all concerned. I mean, I reacted to the truck accident with Jordan Anderson live on the show yesterday. Safety was a major conversation coming into this race. And I think by default, the fact that we did not see too many accidents or, a massive pileup on the last lap like we saw in the truck race or anything like that, that would, cause a cause for concern for safety. I think by default, we can all breathe a sigh of relief today and walk away saying it was a good race. And we saw a great battle for the win come down to the wire as well with Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, and several others up there. I don't really know what more you could have asked for from a race from Talladega, and we should be thankful for that.
Yeah, I think we should be very thankful that nobody got hurt, and I thought it was a decent race. So when Jeff Gluck puts his poll out, I'm probably gonna vote yes. I thought it was a good race. That, as you mentioned, Joe, that intense side by side action. I thought they were gonna wreck multiple times, but the drivers did a really solid job of taking care of each other all day long. And in the end, Chase Elliott ended up becoming the big winner. Crowd obviously really loved that. And I don't really have much else to say, but Talladega went as well as it could have gone, considering all of the safety concerns. And I know a lot of us, we were nervous about this particular race, that somebody could potentially get hurt. Thankfully, we avoided the worst case scenario and the scariest track left on the NASCAR schedule. And we'll keep hoping as we get deeper into the second half of the playoffs that everybody will stay safe and we won't see any concussions or injuries happen moving forward.
Yeah, hopeful for a safe remainder of the season. We got the Charlotte Roval. That's going to end this round. That's going to be the next one. Talladega, overall, I would agree with you. I thought it was an enjoyable race, especially edge of your seat. It reminded me of like the caution-free races. I don't think if we had no stage breaks, I think we still would have seen the caution because of Corey LaJoie. And then, of course, that small big one, which wasn't exactly the big one like we all think about with Talladega. At the end, only 3 cars from that crash were out. We did see some dicey moves here and there with the 3 cars out. Everyone else was running. Daniel Hemrick towards the end had some sort of mechanical issue, brought up the final caution was shot, set up for that last shootout. Ryan Blaney, he was battling Chase Elliott for the win on the closing laps and was strong all day. One point looked like he may have some fuel worries as he was getting right on the point of fuel. So if there was an overtime, he would have been done for. He comes home just short of a win, but he is now 32 points above the cut line. He's going to a Roval, a track he's won at before. If he was to get the 2 stage points, that'll put him at 52 points over. Depending on how everybody else do, he could be in really good shape to advance to the next round. Kobe, do you see Ryan Blaney making a championship run without a win?
Joe, how wonderful would it be to see Ryan Blaney make the championship 4 winless, and then all of a sudden a non-playoff driver wins the race at Phoenix, and Ryan Blaney finishes ahead of everyone else, and he becomes a winless NASCAR Cup Series champion? I think that would be an incredible sight to see, and it would certainly bring up a lot of interesting conversations. But on a more serious note, I think Ryan Blaney, he can continue to run consistent, have these great points runs, but I think he's probably going to have to try to win a race when we get into the round of 8 to make the championship 4. I think that that's obvious the easiest route to get there. But this number 12 team, they're so close. They've pretty much done everything this season but win a race. I think they can potentially seal the deal and win at the Charlotte Roval next week, and he's done it before, and we'll see if he can do it again.
He might make the championship 4 without winning a race, but we've yet to see it in the Cup Series where the champion ends up winning the championship without winning the final race under this format. It's happened in Xfinity and trucks a couple of times, but I do think the championship 4 drivers will probably be running all, if not in the top 5, maybe in the top 10. It's usually how it seems to go. I don't know if the other drivers are just a little bit more hesitant to put themselves out there and mix things up with championship 4, but it seems like, especially since we've moved it to Phoenix, the championship 4 are usually running 1, 2, 3, 4 at some point during the race. So I think it's probably the hardest of the 3 series to do it in the Cup Series for a non-playoff driver, non-championship 4 driver, I should say, to win the final race. But Blaney could certainly get there without winning it. He could pull a Ryan Newman and make it into the championship 4. But of course, Ryan Newman, we talked about his winless season in 2014. He would have had to beat Kevin Harvick and by extent win the Homestead race in 2014 to win that championship. So I think Ryan Blaney would have to do something similar. But the way he's looking right now, we've said it all year, he's done everything except win a race. Of course, he won the All-Star race, but that's exhibition. That's the one thing he really hasn't done this year. It's been a very solid year for him. I think absolutely he could make a championship run.
A championship run, and this race without his regular crew chief, next race without his regular crew chief, I think they really are setting themselves up for a great run into playoffs. He could make it a championship 4 because at the end, 3 will get in by wins or less, and 1 will get in by points. If he continues this run, he's going to be really hard to beat. One driver might be hesitating or regretting more what happened today. William Byron, still outside, 11 points below the cut line. Christopher Bell, 33 points below the cut line. A lot of folks thought he was going to come in and be a contender in this round. And Bowman, 54 points in a must-win situation. Of course, one of the issues, he did have to sit out this race. Hopefully he'll be healthy by the next race. Austin Cindric, he's at 0. He is tied with Chase Briscoe. He has to feel a little bit good going to a road course, the Roval. William Byron, though, no stage points. Didn't get any. He's outside. He now approaches the Roval on the outside looking in. Ben, we know Bowman and Bell, they're going to be in must-win situations. Do you believe Byron is in a must-win, and is he in trouble at the Roval?
Well, he's below the cut line, so by definition, he's in trouble at the very least. I don't know that it's a must-win. 11 is certainly a margin that you can make up throughout the race, especially if you go up and run in the top 10 in both the stages and pick up some stage points that way. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, anybody, that isn't more than, I would say 20 points ahead of the cut line, you have to be concerned. You're not going to sleep very well this week. And especially going to the Roval. I mean, I know we were talking about Talladega being the ultimate wild card race. It's actually been, the most straightforward race we've seen all playoffs. So finally had a driver win their way into the next round with Chase Elliott today. It's been a crazy start to the playoffs for 2022 here. But I don't expect, the same level of tameness at the Roval next week. We usually, have some sort of wild card aspect thrown in there, some sort of craziness. We've seen it ever since the inaugural race there in 2018. So I think, very few drivers are going to be safe, sleeping calmly this week. And William Byron certainly won't be one of them either, being 11 points below the cut line.
Yes, Ben, and we'll also find out the results of Byron's appeal this week as well, which I would actually be very surprised if he were to win that appeal, and if he ends up winning, that'll be great for him. But if not, like you're saying, it's certainly not a must. It's certainly not a must-win situation for Byron because he has two good stages, and some others have trouble. He could definitely get into the round of 8 events instead of the next round of the playoffs. But like you were saying, I think of course being below the cut line right now, Byron's certainly in some trouble. But it's certainly not a nightmare scenario. Like if you're like a Christopher Bell or Alex Bowman, who may not be competing, those drivers are definitely going to enter in a must win mentality because they absolutely have to go out there and get the job done, or it'll be game over.
Could be game over for Christopher Bell, which is really crazy just to think how he had such a strong run in the first round of the playoffs. Then with just bad luck, could be potentially out. And of course, we're going to be following the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs all season long as they're coming towards the end. One series that came towards the end, IMSA, and what an exciting finale they had.
Yeah. Once again, this year's running of Motul Petit Le Mans, the 25th edition, lived up to all the hype with another dramatic ending. When it seemed like Wayne Taylor Racing would run away with the DPI championship, we got a late race full course caution, which opened up the pits for the teams to fill up the tank and get a fresh set of Michelins for a sprint to the finish. Wayne Taylor Racing entered the pits lead and then got beat off pit road by their championship rivals Meyer Shank Race, with Tom Blomqvist coming out ahead of Philippe Albuquerque. Blomqvist had a good restart, got through the GTD traffic well, and Albuquerque started closing the gap. While both drivers battled for the overall win and the season-long Drivers' Championship, Albuquerque made an unfortunate mistake, making contact with the Windward Racer Mercedes-AMG GTD car through the S's, causing damage to the number 10 Konica Minolta Acura DPI. Albuquerque was forced to pit, ending the championship hopes for himself and co-driver Ricky Taylor. Meyer Shank Racing, Tom Blomqvist, Oliver Jarvis, they became the final DPI champions in history as Wayne Taylor Racing suffered a tough championship defeat for the third consecutive year in the final race. Adam, did Meyer Shank Racing prove a lot of people wrong by getting the monkey off its back, and would you label Wayne Taylor Racing's 2022 season a failure despite winning the most races in that class?
Well, Kobe, yesterday I picked the Konica Minolta number 10 Acura DPI car to win the race and the championship. So it proved me wrong, and it helped you, Kobe, with pick a winner. So it was nice to see Meyer Shank Racing finally get the monkey off their back. They started the year by winning the Rolex 24 Hours Daytona, and they end the year by winning the 25th running of the Motul Petit Le Mans. So I think it was nice to see Meyer Shank Racing win yesterday. And I wouldn't call Wayne Taylor Racing 2022 a failure. They did win the most wins. They did win the Salem 6 hours of the Glen at Watkins Glen. So I wouldn't call it a failure. They just didn't get the job done at the 24 Hours of Daytona and the Motul Petit Le Mans.
Yeah, I guess failure is not really the right word. I think the word that we're looking for is disappointment, because I didn't even realize, that this is the third consecutive time that they've had a chance to take home the championship in the final race and lost it 3 years in a row. And I'm sure Wayne Taylor doesn't want 2023 to go the same way. Imagine having a chance to win the championship, mathematically eligible, with going to Petit Le Mans next year, and then can you imagine a fourth consecutive defeat in the championship? Wayne Taylor Racing, they've been so close, but just haven't been able to get the job done. As you mentioned, yeah, they've had a lot of good things happen to them this season. They should absolutely hold their heads high with how this year has gone. Just a bit disappointed that they failed to deliver when it mattered the most. And Meyer Shank Racing, You definitely have to give a lot of credit to them. It's been incredible watching this organization grow over the years. I remember when it was just Michael Shank, and this used to be known as an underdog team in sports car racing. They've really built themselves into a powerhouse factory Acura organization, and they're really clicking on all cylinders. And Tom Blomqvist, Oliver Jarvis, they've had a really great season all around, being consistent. But the only thing against them was that Wayne Taylor Racing's won all these races, but they've only won the Rolex 24, and they were so close, but they just could not do it. And in this final race, Meyer Shank Racing took advantage of the misfortune with the two Ganassi Cadillacs, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit, and then Philippe Albuquerque making the mistake getting into that GTD car. They took advantage of that, and look where they are now. They're champions, and Elio Castroneves hopped right back in an Acura and put in an impressive driving stance and did exactly what he needed to do to set up the car for his teammates to take home all the glory. And the full course caution that set up the shootout between the Acuras was caused by a pair of Cadillacs from the same team in an absolute worst nightmare scenario for Chip Ganassi Racing. Both of their cars collided, the 01 and the 02. Ringer van der Zande made a bold move around the outside of Earl Bamber towards the end of the front stretch, going uphill into turn one. Bamber didn't live, forcing the issue. Both Ganassi Cadillacs hit, went off course, hard into the tire barriers, and it was game over. Rule number one of motorsports is don't wreck your teammate. Which driver do you see at fault here, or was it just a racing incident? I bet Chip Ganassi doesn't see it that way.
I think it would have to go to Ringer van der Zande. That was what he did. I think he could have waited until better part of the track to get around his teammate Earl Bamber. But I wouldn't want to be at Chip Ganassi Racing come tomorrow morning, because Chip probably won't be happy with his IMSA program, having both his DPI cars, go out at the same part of the racetrack.
Yeah, and I guess Alex Palou is out of the doghouse for now with Chip Ganassi. Yeah, because what happened between Van der Zande and Bamber as a team owner, that's not acceptable at all. You at least want to have one bullet left in the gun when you have two strong cars, and for both of them to go out right there, I'm sure Chip Ganassi was super upset, because that's something you really don't want to see. And I know a lot of people, as you did, Adam, placed the blame there on Ringer van der Zande. Is like both of our cars are in contention for the win. Yeah, we're not racing for the championship, but we're gonna be in contention to get a crown jewel win for Mr. Ganassi, and then you force it on the outside like that in a really dangerous spot, and then I guess you can't really expect Earl Bamber to lift right there because that Van der Zande made that move late on the outside, and there was just nowhere for them to go. But whether you blame Van der Zande for being a little greedy there instead of waiting at a different part of the track, or Earl Bamber for not giving Van der Zande more space, it was still an unfortunate thing to see Chip Ganassi racing strong Petit Le Mans in that way, with both cars suffering heavy damage. And now taking a look at our other class winners in LMP2, it was the number 8 Tower Motorsport Orca, John Ferrano, Rui Pinto de Andrade, Louis Delatraz got LMP2 class win after Delatraz made a late move around the Dragon Speed number 81 car, Juan Pablo Montoya. In LMP3, it was the number 36 Andretti Autosport Ligier of Gabby Chavez, Josh Burden, and Jared Andretti. In GTD Pro, it was the number 14 Vassar Sullivan Racing Lexus, Jack Hawkworth, Ben Barnacote, and IndyCar driver Kyle Kirkwood. After a tough rookie campaign, Kirkwood gets a Crown Jewel sports car win. The Lexus was promoted to class victory after the number 62 Risi Competizione Ferrari was issued a drive time violation. In GTD, it was the number 66 Gradient Racing Acura of Super Mario Farnbacher, Indy Lights driver Kiffin Simpson, and Till Bechtolsheimer. Adam, based on the other classes, which battle do you find most intriguing throughout the 10-hour event?
Had to be GTD Pro, especially especially at the end. You had 4 different manufacturers going for the class win, and it was. And yesterday on the pre-show, you asked me, Kobe, which team I think would finish higher, Risi Competizione Ferrari or WeatherTech Mercedes. Well, originally, and I said the racing competition in Ferrari. I mean, you feel for all those drivers. I mean, but GTD Pro, wow, I thought Matt Campbell and Matthew Jomine would have won for the final time, in the FAF Motorsport Porsche before they move up to the before they move up in 2023. So for me, had to be GTD Pro.
Yeah, GTD Pro put on one heck of a show at the end there. Kind of remind me of the battle we saw the Rolex 24, but between FAF Motorsports and KCMG. That was quite an exciting battle at Daytona. And then GTD Pro put on another great show. But I also wanted to know that the GTD field actually beat the entire GTD Pro field, and that's something we've been wondering about all season. If the pro-am driver lineups could take down the all-pro driver lineups, and it finally happened at Motul, Petit, Le Mans, and it happened in a way where it was during one of the full course cautions where the GTD class leader stayed out while all the other GTD pro cars came into the pits and trapped the entire all-pro GT class a lap down. And since the cars, the exact same regulations, it's not like the old GTLM class, the cars which were several seconds faster, which could have eventually probably run them down and passed all of the cars in the Pro-Am class. So fortunately, GTD Pro, they didn't win this one, but the Pro-Am GT cars, they definitely have some bragging rights going into the offseason to say we have a Pro-Am driver lineup and we beat the all-pros and some of those factory drivers they have in the GTD Pro class. And now a special congratulations to all the 2022 IMSA champions and DPI. As we said, the number 60 Meyer Shank racing Acura DPI, Tom Blomqvist, Oliver Jarvis, congrats to them again. LMP2 was the number 8 Tower Motorsport Orca, John Ferrano. LMP3 was the number 54 Corrado Sport Lucia, John Bennett and Colin Braun. GTD Pro, they wrapped it up by simply starting the race, the number 9 FAF Motorsports Porsche, Matthew Jomine and Matt Campbell, and in GTD, the number 27 Harder Racing Aston Martin. Congratulations to Roman DeAngelis. And coming up with the DPI era ending, the new IMSA GTP era begins this week with LMDH machinery testing at Road Atlanta, then another scheduled test at Daytona in early December. If you've been counting down the days until next season, we officially have 110 days until the Roar Before the 24 preseason test begins. And I don't understand you have to go, so we're going to let you do your Grid One Shining moment right now.
Well, I'm going to agree with what Josh said. I was on the call with him on the USRM broadcast of Talladega, and for me, it has to go to the Cup race at Talladega. It was clean. We didn't see any big ones. We didn't see any cars going over. The hardest hit was Corey LaJoie going into the wall. Everyone minded their P's and Q's. It was clean, safe, and in the move that Chase Elliott put on Ryan Blaney, wow-wee, that was incredible. So for me, I'll agree with Josh and say the NASCAR Cup race at Talladega is my Grid One shining moment.
Thank you for sharing, Adam. And next, we're going to bring Ben and Joe to talk about a champion being crowned in New Zealand.
That's right, Kobe. Kalle Rovanpera is the 2022 WRC champion. He's the youngest champion at 22 years and 1 day, so a great birthday present for that young man. Colin McRae, who won it at age 27, held the prior record for 27 years until today. WRC has 2 races remaining on their calendar. So, Joe, are you surprised Rovanpera became a championship contender and won one this quickly? And do you think he could evolve into the next Sebastian Ogier or Sebastian Loeb?
I was surprised because at the beginning of this year, I thought Rovanpera would be behind Elfyn Evans. We saw Elfyn Evans was really contending against Sebastian Ogier for the championship. I thought Ottonic would have a better first half of the season, be a championship contender, and Thierry Neuville as well. Those 3 did not get the job done, but Kalle Rovanpera really been surprising. Last year, at one point he led the championship standings, but then the first stage, less than 5 minutes into the first stage of the race weekend, he crashes out, lost the points lead, never had the points lead for the rest of last year. This year, he looked so much better. And then to this past weekend in New Zealand, as the conditions were getting worse and worse, he was just still pushing it, showing no fear, great driving. And I think he has a lot of potential because we saw what OJ, Lowe, what they did, phenomenal. When you look at the competition that Kalle Rovanpera have, they're in their mid-30s. Rovanpera, only 22. If this race had ended the day before, we would have said he was 21-year-old and a world champion. Phenomenal what he's doing. If he could compete at this level for such a long time, I see him being the next OJ, the next Sebastian Loeb. The question is, will the other teams start looking at younger talent to challenge Kalle Rovanpera? I think that's going to be key. It'll be really exciting to see what's going to happen 2023 and 2024 as we get more and more drivers coming up.
Well, on the constructor side, it's Toyota and Hyundai still battling for that championship. So, Joe, in that side of things, who do you think has the upper hand right now?
That one, I think, potentially Hyundai. They had more vehicles scoring points this past weekend. Tonic looks really good. He's not having the bad luck like he did in the first half of the season. I mean, he got another podium. I see Tonic being a strong contender, just going out there, try to get the wins. Rovanpera, he has this championship already wrapped up. He could still go out there, get wins. But I just feel like the Hyundais lately, they've been looking a little bit better and better. So I think they might have a little bit of an upper hand when it comes to this championship. And the constructors, I think it's going to be really, really exciting to see who gets that championship.
Well, Joe, thank you for those updates. Now I'll turn it right back over to you for the W Series.
Yeah, the W Series, they had a wet race at Singapore, and we saw something we don't see quite often. Jamie Chadwick crashed out. DNF is going to be huge when you see the grid ranking a little bit later on. And then we saw Bicycle Visser get her first win in the W Series since 2019. The championship continues, assuming the series does continue in the United States and Mexico. Jamie Chadwick failed to get that wrapped up, but only 4 drivers are mathematically left. Jamie Chadwick, of course, the points leader, Bicycle Visser, Alice Powell, and Abby Pullen in 4th place. So it's going to be really interesting. We encourage everyone to follow us right here on the Grid Network as we follow the developments with the W Series. Now, the Grid Ranking 2022 Championship is approaching the end pretty quickly because here's the situation. Taking a look at the top 10. Only Kalle Rovanpera could right now overtake Shane Van Gisbergen. Max Verstappen lost some ground with his 8th place finish and is mathematically eliminated. And then when you look outside the top 10, Jamie Chadwick fell all the way down to 18th. W Series, their scores are weighted, so if they're performing at a higher level like what Jamie Chadwick has been doing, you're going to rise faster. But then when you get a DNF, it just dropped her. Of course, W Series, they're using Tattoo's chassis, feeder series cars, but still, big drop for Jamie Chadwick. Kalle Rovanpera, he's going to have to win the remaining races and power stages to have a shot at Shane Van Gisbergen. For Shane Van Gisbergen, top 10 finish next race weekend at the Bathurst 1000. He will wrap up the 2022 Grid Ranking World Championship. Last year, Shane Van Gisbergen was in 2nd place with a handful of laps when a tire blew, lost the Bathurst 1000 and Grid Ranking to Sebastian Ogier from World Rally Championship. And Shane Van Gisbergen has dominated essentially the supercars, controlled the grid ranking all year. And then this weekend, Ben, we saw him make his World Rally debut in a WRC2 car, 9th place overall, a podium, 3rd place in WRC class. First driver to score in 2 different series of the grid ranking in the same year. He's confirmed that he's looking to make a move to a NASCAR to do at least one race, potentially with Project 91. How impressive is it to see Shane Van Gisbergen not only dominate, but have an impressive WRC debut, potentially going to NASCAR for a one-race deal with potentially Project 91, and potentially more options ahead as more people are realizing who this racer is.
Well, let me be the first to admit, of course, Supercars, WRC, not 2 of the series that I follow most closely here at Grid Network, but I have to say, I imagine that even there's not as much overlap as people might think. You know, anytime you try to get into a different kind of race car, a different kind of discipline, to see somebody adapt that quickly and be that competitive right out of the gate is simply incredible. So well done to SVG. And I've been hearing the same rumors here, but it looks like he might be interested in working on something for NASCAR next year to come do a one-off. Of course, Project 91 would be a great avenue and great place for him to do that. So we'll see what comes of that. But in the meantime, he's certainly shown that I think if he commits to a Project 91 entry or a NASCAR entry the same way he has here, I think he could certainly have some success.
Yeah, definitely. SVG is such an incredible race car driver, been able to adapt to many disciplines of racing, supercars, a little bit of formula cars, on the dirt as well, sports cars, all of these different type of disciplines. It's so incredible because a lot of drivers can't do what he's doing, and to see him do as well as he's done in WRC, very impressive. I wonder next time if he'll be able to find a spot in the top class. I don't know if that'll be possible, but I definitely have to defer to Joe on that one. But SVG, he certainly has to be very happy with how Rally New Zealand went. I know he's been doing some rallying during his free weekends down in Australia to prepare for this, and it shows that all the practice is certainly made perfect, and all the rumors that he could potentially be racing for Justin Marks' Trackhouse team next year, possibly at the Chicago Street Course. Supercars that they run on street courses, so that would certainly be right in his alley and could give him an advantage, considering the fact that the NASCAR Cup Series car that we have now has a lot of similar technology that he's used to racing down under in supercars, so he could have an advantage there. And also, since the Cup drivers we have though in NASCAR don't have experience on a street course, so SVG might come in with a slight advantage in that area if he decides to run that NASCAR race. But we haven't seen the supercar schedule yet for next year, so we don't know if there's going to be an open slot for him to do Chicago or potentially any of the other road courses. And with that said, it's time for our Grid One shining moment. Ben, we're going to start off with you. What's your Grid One shining moment from this racing weekend?
Well, I think I'll go with what Adam said. I think I have to give a call to the Cup Series field at Talladega for giving us a good, clean, safe race on a weekend where there were so many concerns regarding safety and the next-gen car and changes that we need to look at for next year, and drivers becoming a little bit more outspoken and showing their displeasure with the current situation. Thankfully, we got through a race that's known for bigger accidents and harder hits without too much trouble in the Cup Series, and I think we should all be very thankful for that. That is my one shining moment from this weekend.
That is definitely, I think, a shining moment as well. But my Grid One shining moment has to go World Rally Championship. Kalle Rovanpera making history, youngest World Rally Championship driver to go out there, win the championship. Honorable mentions to Shane Van Gisbergen getting ninth place overall, a podium in his World Rally Championship debut. What an effort. That is my one shining moment.
And my one shining moment is gonna come from the W Series and giving it to Bosco Visser for winning the race in Singapore. And as you remember, in 2019 during the inaugural W Series season, she was one of the top drivers all season long, up there with Alice Powell and Jamie Chadwick. And then obviously pandemic happened, no W Series in 2020, come back in 2021, and everyone was wondering who can take the fight to Jamie Chadwick for the championship, and everybody was saying, either Alice Powell or Bosco Visser, since she looked so good. But Bosco Visser 2021 season, it wasn't good at all. And also remember that scary crash she had at Spa. I believe she was upside down and had to go to the hospital. So 2021 was a disastrous year for her after showing such a strong form in 2019. And this year, I think it's certainly been a major improvement based on what we saw in 2021. And I know when you have a down year like that after running so strong the previous season, it can really hurt your confidence and you can question your driving abilities. But Bosco Visser, she's put her head down, keep plugging away, and she finally reached the top step of the podium for the first time since 2019 in W Series. And that's why she's my one shining moment from this racing weekend.
And of course, tomorrow, Grid Live Encore. Ben has a lot to talk about with the Truck Series, Xfinity Series. Joshua's going to be there for Moto2, Moto3, and Casey Campbell with 2 ARCA races. Be sure to subscribe to us right here on the Grid Network so you don't miss Grid Encore tomorrow. And follow all our social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, including at Grid Rankin, at Grid_History as well. And if you're interested in keeping us on the air, Fest in the Grid Network, join our Patreon like Colin the Show, Mark and Robin have, or buy me a coffee, what Edward, Amber, and Zach have done. You can buy your favorite on-air personality a drink. We greatly appreciate it. And of course, everything goes to helping the Grid Network grow and be at the track. And if you want to invest in the stock market, check out public.com. Use the referral code GridNet for free stock from Public. Start getting invested in the stock market. Use the tools to learn about investing in the stock market. Great platform to make new friends as well and learn the stock market. And definitely use the referral code GridNet. And as I mentioned, Grid Encore tomorrow. Wednesday, Grid tonight. We'll be following all the news, including with the W Series, if they're going to be racing for the remainder of the season in the United States and Mexico. And then Friday, the women in motorsports. And then we do it all over again with a special race weekend. Bathurst 1000 is coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun. Subscribe to us, Grid Network. Comment, like, and subscribe. Don't miss any of the action. For everyone here, including Adam and Joshua who were here earlier, Ben Schneider, Cody Lambert from the Podium Finish, I'm Joe San Diego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time. Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.